lovelies, and welcome to Freaky Friday 2021. I am very excited to be kickstarting this year's series with Xxx Tentacion. Now, I literally heard Xxx's music for the first time yesterday. I had never heard his music. I didn't really know anything about him except he was murdered. I knew that. Apart from that, I knew nothing. Xxx Tentacion, real name is Xxx Dwayne Ricardo Onfroy, and he was born on the 23rd of January 1998 and sadly passed away on the 18th of June 2018 as a result of multiple gunshot wounds. He was 20 years old. So young. Like, to me, I'm only 29, but that's a baby. That is a baby. As Xxx's energy came through, he's just said, sorry, he's just said you can call me Xxx. Okay. As Xxx's energy has come through, he comes through very calm. And I had preconceptions, and maybe I shouldn't have judged or assumed, but I expected such a different energy than the one I have with me. The energy I feel from Xxx is very calm. He's joked a lot and laughed, because obviously I meditate and I bring the energy through before I turn the camera on, and he comes through very charming. And he's even saying, now I can hear him saying, I was a nice person. I was very misunderstood. And I feel like he spent his whole life being misunderstood. And he's saying he's really here. You know, I always ask whoever I channel and connect to, I always ask them, you know, what is your message? This is your reading. What do you want to say? And for him, it's really, I just want people to understand me. He really wants to be understood and seen. Because I feel like for his whole life, from childhood to his demise, he really wasn't truly understood, and he is saying he completely acknowledges his mistakes. That's one thing I can say about him, totally. He's like, I was wrong at times. I was really wrong. And he's saying, if, you know, people understood where I came from and the way I was raised and what I knew, I really didn't know any better. But he is saying, in hindsight and from this side, he can completely see how wrong he was. He's talking about his life and how it was quite dark, and he dealt with a lot of demons in his own mind that stemmed from his childhood. He had a very traumatic childhood, and I feel before any of the trauma occurred in his life, like between the ages of 1 and 3, he was a very sensitive soul. He makes me feel that he cried a lot. He was very sensitive, very emotional. He always wanted to be near his parents. He always wanted to be hugged and held and supported. And from a very young age, that support system was ripped away from him. And he was alone. And he is basically saying that his whole life was spent in isolation. He's saying, yes, there was people around me, but I was always betrayed. I could never trust anyone. And I even feel that his death, I don't know if the people that killed him were sentenced. I do feel it was multiple people involved. But he's saying these were even people I'd let into my home. These were people I'd let into my life. This was done by people I knew. There was trust that was broken. I'm going to start pulling the cards as, you know, he's still speaking. The only way I could really express myself was through poetry. He does make me feel that he writ, and he writ a lot. He also had psychic gifts of his own. And he's saying he would dream a lot. There was a lot that went on in Xxx Tentacion's mind. Sorry, just say. There's a lot. Oh, that was the King of Cups. I think that bounced over there, but it bounced back. Okay, well, that would make sense. The Fool. He felt like the Fool a lot of the time. He felt like he was always on edge. He was always taking risks. He's saying that when you come from where I come from, you truly have nothing to lose. And that really is the energy of the Fool. It's like, I'm going to do it anyway. Like, who cares what anyone thinks? Who cares what anyone says? He's making me feel like he wasn't born like that, okay? His life circumstances changed who he was. He's bringing in women's energy. And the women, he, for his age, I feel had a lot of encounters with women romantically. And he's saying the way I treated women was not okay. He's actually, I'm envisioning him and he's hanging his head and he's shaking. There's a lot of tears I can feel coming to my eyes, but they can't come out. Xxx is someone who was so sensitive on the inside, but life hardened him. And especially his relationship with his mother hardened him. And it affected the way he dealt with women, because he was such a sensitive, I would say, go as far to say he was a sensitive flower as a child. And his mum really trod on him as a flower. And so when he did come of age and he did start getting into relationships with women and becoming romantically involved, he was like, well, you can't hurt me the same way my mum did. You know, you can't hurt me in that same way. I'm in control. You know, it's really that energy. And yeah, okay. He's just, there's this just complete energy of being alone. And even if people wanted to come in and help him, he's like, I couldn't let them. I couldn't let them in. I couldn't trust anyone. I was very much by myself. Yeah, I was very much by myself. He's getting very excited now as he talks about his career, because I feel like for him, his career was such an escape. I've talked here, I'm kind of like pulling cards, talking, but you know, he really just threw himself into the music, and he was like, well, what have I got to lose? I have nothing to lose. He really harnessed the full energy, and he was so alone on it. You know, he was so alone in this journey, which the Fool does represent. It represents taking risks, going at it alone, starting a new beginning, people looking at you as if you're crazy. He's just saying, I was used to being called crazy. I was used to it. And it got to a certain extent where he would play up to it. It was like, oh, you think I'm crazy? Okay, I'll show you I'm crazy, you know? I feel like if Xxx had lived on, he would have been huge. And it's such a tragedy, because he really had that genius spark, you know, that we so rarely see, but every now and then we do see it. I'm talking about Tupac, Kanye West. He had that. He had that, which is why, even though he wasn't big on a global scale, he was known from such an early stage in his career, because he took risks, he was vulnerable, he showed the world who he was. He was like, take me or leave me, this is it. Okay, he created a whole new world for himself, and he would have had a massive global impact had he been able to fulfill his career. Now, he's talking about why people wanted to take him down, okay? People, again, he's coming through with this misunderstanding and this feeling misunderstood, and he's saying people truly did not understand me. And when people don't understand other people, they truly become scared. And I do feel that the people that took his life knew him. That's very much how he's making me feel. He's saying they knew me. They knew me. These are people I let into my space. These are people that I trusted. They knew me. And okay, 1 second. Final card, please. Final card for Xxx. Yeah, he's making it clear that... Oh, do we take those? Yeah, okay, let's take those. Okay. I mean, these cards just say everything, really. He's saying that they knew me. I let them into my space. I let them into my home. I let them in, okay? And this was a common thread throughout Xxx's life. You know, he would let people in. They would betray him. He would have to close off. They would let more people in. They would betray. He would have to close off. He had such an energy that he attracted negative people. He was so empathic and so sensitive, but he didn't harness it as a power. He felt it was a weakness, and because of that, he allowed people to come in that treated him badly. This is something he was used to from a young age. So yeah, he would have had that global domination. That's definitely there, and it's in his cards. Now he wants to acknowledge the fact that he was going through a court case. there was legal affairs just before he died, and they were tied to his romantical status. Now, I do know that that is a fact. I do know that he was going to court for domestic violence. He's very ashamed of that. He's very ashamed of that, because I feel like as a child he witnessed a lot of domestic violence towards his mother. He witnessed a lot of men coming in and out of his home. There's just so much vulnerability and feeling unsafe and feeling scared. And I know I sound very like confident and happy, because I feel like that's how he's coming across. This is how he is. I can feel his energy in my body. It's like I'm gonna just smile and pretend like I'm fine, but inside I'm very upset. Okay, and if I let the guard down, like if he let his guard down, he would be very emotional. He's saying I had to just accept that this is how my life was, and he's wanting to apologise. He really does recognise his mistakes. That's the one thing he can say. He's very certain that he knows he fucked up. He knows it. He's saying I would preach love on one hand, and I'm being drawn to the scales of the justice. I would preach love on one hand and loving yourself, and on the other hand I would be so destructive. But he is bringing me to his mind, and he's saying my mind was so messed up that I basically had an angel and a devil on my shoulder at all times, and people took advantage of me. I wanted people to like me. He really wanted people to like him. This is someone that wanted to be liked. Again, that he brings me back to his childhood. There was a lot of men that came in and out of his home, and he was, I don't want to get sad and emotional. I feel in his childhood, it's just so, he was so vulnerable, like so vulnerable. I feel like there were times when he was left alone with people who were abusive, and he just wanted them to like him so much, and he grew up with that. That's something that stuck with him. He wanted men specifically to like him. He had a very different relationship with men and women. He wanted men to like him, and he wanted women to respect him, and that comes from his relationship with his parents. That comes from the relationship with the adults that were around him as a child. He felt disrespected by women in his life. He felt betrayed by women. And so when he got into relationships with women, he became the one that had the power. He wanted to be the one in control, and he took it too far. He just keeps saying mistake, mistake, mistake. He made mistakes. And when it comes to men, he wanted them to like him. So he would just, kind of be like a yes person. Oh, bro, can we have this? Yeah, sure. Can we do this? Yeah, sure. Yes, 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 yes. And he said yes so much that he let people into his space, and before you knew it, they betrayed him, so much so to the end of his life. There's so much music he's saying that I even wrote because he knew he was going to pass young. So let's talk about that, okay? Let's talk about that, because he had strong intuition. He had dreams. He's saying he dreamt a lot about his future and his past. He would have premonitions. He was spiritual, but he wasn't like tapped into it. He had spiritual gifts and he had strong intuition, but a lot of the time, because of his emotional state, he would dismiss his intuition. He would dismiss how he felt. He would dismiss all of these things, and he would dream. He was a big dreamer. He's telling me that he dreamt about his passing. He knew he would pass young, which is why I do feel that connection with him and Tupac, because Tupac knew that, his passing was going to come young, even though I still believe Tupac is here. But, he always would say that. He would write and write and write because he knew his time was limited. And that is the same energy I feel here with Xxx. He knew his time was limited. Three of Cups. I feel just before he passed, these realizations that he has now, he was having on earth. And had he lived on earth as he is doing now, I feel where he is, he would have been able to heal and overcome and show reform, show that people can change. He is talking about the planet and how people can be so unforgiving. He was 20. He shows up here as the Page of Cups. He was a boy. Right? A lot of people will argue, when you're 18, 19, 20, you're an adult. okay, maybe in the eyes of the law and the government, but in reality, in life, in experience, you've got a lot to learn at that age. And he's saying from this side, looking back, I really had no idea what I was doing, and I didn't have the emotional, the correct emotional way to release my feelings. There was so much more for him to do. Eight of Wands talks about opportunity, and it's a Wands card, so it's talking about career. There was so much more to do. This is a man who would have done film. This is a man who would have done clothing. This is a man who would have done album upon album upon album collaborations. Like I said, he would have been worldwide. In fact, there's still opportunity for him to go worldwide. He makes me feel like he's still, from this side, influencing the people that worked with him in the studios and is still pushing his music to be played. So there is still opportunity for him to go into the mainstream. He's saying even from where he is. It's sad because even though he was so young, there's no real ties to earth, which means there's no one here that he truly feels like, oh, they're missing me. He felt so invisible at times. And it's kind of like no one could hurt him because he had already hurt himself and he'd already been hurt so much. Nine of Wands is about independence, standing on your own. He stood on his own from a very young age. And Five of Swords represents conflict and disagreement and sadness. This was a sad person, and it's really sad, but he's making me feel that these people feel like they took my life, but I spent so much of my life suicidal that, you know, you ending my life really didn't do anything to me. And it's so sad. It's so sad. And the final card for him, which is so reflective of his energy, is the Hermit. I feel with Xxx that probably from the age of 5 or 6, he closed off, shut down and withdrew. The Hermit is about isolating yourself, going within, withdrawing, being alone. But also the beauty of the Hermit is from that isolation you let your light shine. And he's kind of wanting to end and saying, you know, even though I was dark, I was alright. He's saying I was alright considering what I had been through, what I had seen. He's talking about drugs and abuse. And it's almost like he would stand in his living room as a child and there'd be so much going on around him, like men being abusive to his mother and all this kind of stuff. And it's like he would just stand there, frozen. And again, it was like no one saw him. This was all just happening around him. No one saw him. And he wants to say thank you. Oh, I feel emotional. Because through his music and being able to touch people in that way, you allowed him to be seen. And that's all he ever wanted. And he actually wants to end by saying, I hope now that I am on the other side, people can understand me and I am sorry for my mistakes. And I have to tell you, although I didn't know of Xxx Tentacion before this reading, I did have an image and I did have a judgment, I guess, I made about what I thought he would be like. But he completely threw out anything I thought. And so from this, I guess we learn you do not judge a book by its cover. And I am so grateful for his presence and his time. Thank you so much for being with me today, lovelies. If you are an Xxx Tentacion fan, please do leave below your favourite song of his. And I will see you soon for another video. Bye.